Hi, my name's Eric Price, and I'm going to talk today about my book Politics from the series Philosophy for 5 to 500-year-olds. It's a 5-book series on the 5 major branches of philosophy, simply explained for you to understand and to incorporate in your life. It's a system of philosophical thought distilled down from centuries of philosophy and philosophers to simple explanations of how to navigate reality. Your philosophy is your operating system. Philosophy is the operating manual for the human animal. To understand it is to the betterment of your life. The 4th book is about politics. Politics. What does that mean when I say the word politics? What do you think about? You think about Republicans, you think about Democrats, you think about Congress and the presidency. You think about it. Uh, uh, that's how you probably think about it. When we talk about philosophy and we talk about politics, we talk about the ideas that drive all this action, the foundational principles to understand what politics is at its root, at its foundation, so that you may be able to interpret and understand different political systems, how they work and how they don't work, and to take something for yourself. It's a good beginning, and it starts at 5 and it progresses through your entire life if you hope to be 500 years old. From 5 to 500, concepts that you can agree or disagree with and then teach to your children. Let's begin with politics. What is politics? What is politics? Here's some things to think about. What are rights? What is the government for? How do we deal with people? And how do we trade for things? Simple explanations to understand politics. We have choices. Other people do too. Politics is living together by choice. Politics is living together by choice. It's not Republican, it's not Democrat, it's not this or it's not that. It's the idea of what it is to begin with, the foundation to build on. So now, as we try to understand what is politics, we have choice, other people do too. We have rights. We all have rights. What does that mean? Rights protect our choices equally. So, immediately and visually, setting up the basis of what a right is. What does it mean to have rights? What are rights? The definition of the concept right. Let's define the concept right. We have them. What are they? Rights are freedom to act. A right is the freedom to act. What is the opposite? The opposite is a permission. You need permission to act. If you walked up to 1,000 people and asked them, what are rights? If they can say at all what it is, they would probably say something like to free speech, to keep and bear arms. That's probably what they would say, just those 2 things. What does all of it entail? What is the concept of a right? Very simply explained here. It's a freedom. A right is a freedom. It's a freedom to act. And sometimes, most of the times, in order to understand a concept, it's very valid to understand its opposite, its antonym. So when you understand what one thing is, or you don't understand it, by an understanding of the opposite, you get a deeper understanding of it. What is the opposite of a right? How do we continue to concretize the concept of a right? How do we just make it more clear? Everything to make it more clear. Well, what is its opposite? What is its antipode? If we're talking zeros and ones, what is not that? The opposite is a permission. You need permission to act. Anything that you choose to do, you cannot do it until someone says it's okay to do. We have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Sound familiar? Our lives are ours to live. The basic first right, the right to life. We don't need permission to live. We need freedom, the freedom to act. That is our right to our lives. Our lives are ours to live. Our lives are ours to live. Life, liberty, and the pursuit. Liberty. Our liberty. The liberty to use our minds and our bodies to live. If we have the right to life, how do we live? We live by using what nature gave us, this body, this mind. If we can't use it, we can't live. And our happiness, the pursuit of happiness, for the freedom to pursue our goals. We don't have a right to happiness. Happiness is as different for every individual. We have a right to pursue it with the freedom to pursue. And regardless of what makes you happy, the freedom to pursue it. And the rewards of achieving your goals. The reward from achieving your goals, the value obtained, your property. The reward becomes our property. We earned it. It's ours by right. The reward becomes our property. We earned it. It's ours by right. When we make choices and have the freedom to act, to pursue our values, to achieve those values have been earned. And what we gain from that, we gain spiritual values and we gain material values. We earned it. It is now ours. It is our property. It is ours by right. Without property, we cannot act. Without property, you cannot act. Freedom is the ability to act. If you're not free to think, you can't act on your thoughts. If you're not free to use your body, you cannot act in reality. You cannot act. You act to achieve values. Those values are in the form of property and spiritual values. If you're not allowed to own property, if you can't have property, if you can't accumulate property, then you cannot act in any way. If you don't have a hairbrush, you can't comb your hair. If you don't have tools of distribution, you can't spread your ideas. If you craft a tool in order to open coconuts in which to survive, and someone takes all your tools away, you are left with nothing but these, with no property, no shelter, no nothing, no ownership. You cannot act for long in reality. We all have equal rights without hurting others. Using our rights can't hurt others. They are rights. So we talk about choice, freedom to act, pursuing that, your happiness. But wait, what if someone chooses by right, if that's your definition of right, freedom to act, chooses by right to hurt others, to take values from them, not to create their own value, but to take value, to hurt others? Well, let's talk about back to the basis of rights. We all have equal rights. Okay. If we all have equal rights, freedom to act. Using rights can't hurt others. They are rights. So to be right, the concept of right, a freedom to act. By hurting others, you are violating their rights. So the term right, the concept that it defines, has to apply equally to everyone in order for it to be a right. Rights for you and rights for some are not rights. Rights are for everyone equally. So you don't have the right to hurt another. If you did, it wouldn't be a right. Rights, the right to own personal property, they require protection. The reality is that it is possible to take something from someone else, to violate their rights. Rights can be violated. So how do we prevent that from happening? First things, we recognize that they require protection. The very fact that they are a right, they require protection. So what do we do? What do we do? Now, this is the fourth book on politics. The third book on ethics sets up choice, freedom, and protection of freedom for the individual. Your ethics, your morality, your ethics sets up your politics. Your ethics sets up your politics. Politics is just based on your ethics. So once you have your ethics, your politics is just an extension of that. Politics is an extension of your morality to the broader group of society with which you live. Simple explanations to better understand reality. What is politics? Politics is your individual ethics as they apply to the group that you interact with. How do you choose? How do they choose? How do you choose together in a society, in a polis, in a city? It's politics. So, how do we do that? Well, what we have done in the United States of America and what other countries do, and what all societies must do, is to create a government together to protect our rights. From Plato on up. How do you form a society? Who rules the society? How do societies function? How can they operate? How should they be designed? How do we do it? What are the ideas, the foundations, the philosophy that drives human actions individually and together so that we may live? From 5 to 500 years old. Begin at the beginning. Lay yourself a foundation to better understand all the systems that you'll learn, things that you have learned, to classify it, to distinguish it, to differentiate it, to identify it, to differentiate it, and then to integrate it as this type of politics versus this. The differences, what do you accept? What do you reject? You can understand it all. Politics is not like, oh, politics. No, politics is pretty straightforward. Politics is just a result of your ethics. So if you've read book 3 on ethics, or if you've watched book 3 video on ethics, then this all starts to, you see how it just falls out in the wash. So we create the government together to protect our rights. Our government protects us with. How does it protect rights? We have these rights, they need protection. We have given the agency of protection to the government. We have said, you are our agent now in these transactions with others, the government. We're going to give you that authority, our rights for protection. To the police protect us locally. The police protect us locally. The military, foreign protection from other nations. What is a nation? What is a country? It is a geographic boundary. It is a geographic boundary in which the government has authority in that geographic boundary. That is a government. For this area of reality, things that happen between the people who live in this area, they have agreed to give agency to the government to enforce their rights. Geographic area. So, domestic versus international protection. The military. And finally, the legal courts. Not everyone is a criminal. So you have the criminal courts, and then you have the civil courts, but you have courts. You have another mechanism with which to decide disputes that doesn't involve the use of force. These are the 3 basic functions of the government. The police to help protect us locally. The military to help protect us internationally. The legal system to help protect us. In societies, when people work and trade together, there will inevitably be disputes. The most honest, rational agreements between people will be interpreted differently in different ways, and there will be legitimate disputes. And there needs to be a mechanism with which to settle those disputes, a mechanism with which to use an objective measurement that is equal to all to protect rights and resolve conflicts peacefully so that people can transact long term through contracts and deals that extend beyond pay me right now for this thing right now. And even those types of deals, but any sort of transaction, but more specifically, ones that extend in a broader period of time, require the ability to contract over long terms. We are conceptual animals. Conceptual is the long term, to be able to plan long term. And you cannot do that if you can't rely on people and that counterparty risk of the other person performing what they said they would do. And so you have a contract, and contracts need to be administered. And it doesn't matter if you are, there will be conflicts inevitably, to simple misunderstandings and everything in between that and just criminal activity. A republic form of government protects rights with objective law. So I'm focusing really here on the way the republic was formed, as well as, without going broadly into all the different political systems, here's one system that you can be familiar with, and then judge other systems as in comparison to. So a republic form of government, the republic that the United States was based on, the Aristotelian principles that laid the foundation of government, the Constitution, how it's formed. These are based on Aristotelian principles, principles by John Locke, others that formulated it. From 5 to 500 years old. I'm putting down here simple explanations that have been the result of experimentation of civilization from the last 5,000 years. From 5 to 500 years old, based on 5,000 years of Western thought. From Thales to Heraclitus to Pythagoras to um, uh, pre-Socratics, Socrates, to the pre-Socratics, and then Socrates, and then Plato, and then Aristotle, and then moving forward. And then, all the way through Locke, everyone, all Bacon, Bastiat, um, the principles formulating it, and then the experimentations of with United States, a republic, if you can keep it. The goal of government is to protect freedom. We can lose our freedom if we violate others' freedom. So we form these governments with objective laws to protect us, to protect our freedoms. With freedoms protected, what do we do? What can we do now? We create values and trade with others for value. Now that we have the freedom to act, the freedom to contract, to create without hurting others, what do we do? What do? We do what we do. We create values as the human animal. Book 1 on metaphysics. Book 1 on metaphysics sets up everything, begin in the beginning. But we're the creative animals. We have the power to create. and we create values. And our politics is we trade with others for values. Our politics is our ethics as it relates to the group. Ethically, we create values. We create values to sustain our lives. And then when we work politically, we take those values and what do we do with them? We trade them for other values with other people that create value without force, but through trade. We are free to trade with others safely. You have something, I have something, let's trade. We use money to trade for things. It's easier to trade with. So, what are we doing here? We're setting up the whole idea of what money is from 5 to 500 years old. We're setting up the whole idea of what is money? What is it? Money is a mechanism to facilitate trade. We use money because if we were to use goods, it would be hard to equalize the transaction so both people get the value they want to receive. You want an apple, all I got is a car. I got a car, all you got is a bundle full of apples. Money is used for trade to facilitate trade, to reduce, not reduce, to take these disparate values, these unequal values, and be able to trade with one another. We need to reduce it down to a unit of measure that can be broken down into smaller units of measure that can then be used to exchange with. And that's all that money is. We don't really need money. We need things. But to get things, money is an easier way to trade. So we use money. Trading is persuading. It is good for us. Trading is persuading. It is good for us. So you create values. Others create values. You want some of what they have. They want some of what you have. You have money. You use it to trade. You trade by another person understanding that value and saying, I want some of that value. So you would say, hey, I'd like some of that value from you. Will you take this for it? The trade. It's a persuasion to persuade the other person that you have something that I have something that you want, and you're going to want this in exchange. It's a persuasion, it's an agreement, and it's good for us both. So we trade. The opposite of persuasion is coercion. The opposite of persuasion is coercion. To understand something, understand its opposite. And once you understand something, you can easily understand its opposite. It's another mental model to use. So the opposite of persuading and trading is forcing and coercing. That is not good. It's bad for us. It's bad for all of us. It's bad for the person who got forced. They don't have the freedom to act. They don't have the freedom to choose. They don't have the freedom to trade due to someone using force preventing them from doing it. But what about the forcer? What about the forcer? How can it be bad for them? They got what they wanted. If the forcer gets what they want, that's not bad for them. They got what they wanted. How is it bad for them? People will do that. That's why people do that. Because they get what they want. They don't care about other people. The reality is that that is bad for us. When you force someone and get what you want, it is good for you in the short term if you don't get caught. If you get caught, you get in a timeout. You get in a timeout if you get caught. You lose your freedom. You now lose your freedom. But what if you don't get caught? People are going to do it because they don't get caught. 500 to 500 years old. People will do it if they don't get caught. To follow that out to its extreme would take a little bit longer than is in this video. We'll do that in another video. But long term, you use force to get values for yourself ends up being a complete disservice to you and your life and your achievement of your own happiness. Immediately, the risk of getting caught. Immediately, the risk of getting caught, going to jail, losing your freedom, losing your life. Forcing is bad. If you have to force someone, that means that there's force that will be applied to you in return. Now, this goes back to Book 3 on ethics. Lying is faking reality to gain a value, and it is not easy to fake reality for long. Book 3 on ethics. Your politics is just your ethics as it relates to the group. Politics is living peacefully with people. Politics is living peacefully with people. That's all it is. That's all politics is. Now you know politics. Now you know the concept of politics. You have a system of politics, a system that is what the United States of America has been designed on, but even more deeply, the principles of philosophy, of political philosophy that underlie the basis of our entire political system. In 25 pages with pictures to be understood as early as 5 all the way up to 500. From the beginning all the way through, a system with which to integrate your understanding, to be able to see when something else contradicts it, and to understand your thoughts on it in relation to here. Well, this is the foundational principles of human rights, the purpose of a government, what it should do to protect rights, how to create and trade values with others, the mechanisms for which we trade value, basis of the monetary system, all simply explained. What did we think about? What did we think about? What are rights? Rights protect our freedom. What is the government for? To protect our rights. How do we live together? Through persuasion and trading. How do we trade for things we want? We use money to trade values. This book belongs to you. This book belongs to you, I hope. Encourage thinking. Philosophy for 5 to 500-year-olds is a book about encouraging thinking, a system of philosophy integrated based on the 5 main branches. Simple explanations of everything. First principles for the first grades. Metaphysics, the nature of reality. It is what it is. Epistemology, the theory of knowledge. How do you know it? How do you know? Ethics, choice, value, how to make choices to achieve values is your ethics. What do you do? Politics. Politics is your ethics as it relates to the broader group. What do they do? And finally, the fifth book in the series, which is still being illustrated, Aesthetics. The philosophy of art. What is beauty? How does it measured? And what is its purpose? Aesthetics. How do I feel? Your philosophy, if properly designed and integrated, answers these 5 questions. What is it? It is what it is. How do I know? Logic, reason as the method to know. How do I choose? What do I do? Ethics. Pursue values. What do they do? What do other people do? Politics. Your ethics as it relates to the group. Respect their choice. Respect their choice. And 5, aesthetics. How do I feel? Answer. Your art is the expression of your feelings, the distribution of your ideas to the group. Art. Art is your evaluation, your metaphysical value judgments, your feelings about reality expressed to those who consume your art. I think with this system, you will understand that these concepts are practical, they're useful, and that your philosophy is your operating system for your human condition. These 5 books are the manuals for the human animals. Start in the beginning with metaphysics and learn them all. Hope you appreciated this walkthrough. It's a long form video, but it covers a lot of deep concepts. And if you want to see ethics, I did a similar video on ethics, and I've done some many detailed videos on metaphysics and epistemology in short formats, all divided. Hope you enjoy them.